The council chamber was massive. It stretched high above the floor with seats arranged in circles that went up and up like a giant stadium. 47 different species sat in those seats, representing worlds from across the galaxy. The air smelled strange, a mix of different atmospheres that the ventilation system worked hard to balance. Some species breathed oxygen like humans. Others needed methane or chlorine, sitting in special sealed pods. Captain Hyun Kim stood in the center of the chamber floor. He wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, perfectly pressed and clean. His face showed nothing but calm professionalism. He'd been standing there for 3 hours now, listening to the council members talk. They were not talking to him. They were talking about him, about his people, about humanity. The humans want access to the frontier territories, said the Vrouxian representative. The reptilian creature's voice hissed through the translation device. They have been part of this council for only 15 years. 15 years. My people have been here for 3,000. Other council members made sounds of agreement. Clicks, whistles, growls, all blending together through the translation system into words that Hyun could understand. Ambassador Jiwoo Park sat behind Hyun in the human delegation section. She was older than Hyun, with gray streaks in her dark hair. She had spent 12 of the last 15 years in this chamber, negotiating, compromising, and smiling politely while other species treated humanity like children. Her tablet screen glowed softly as she made notes. Everything was being recorded. Everything had been recorded for 15 years. The humans cannot protect those territories, another voice said. This one belonged to a Keltheran, an insectoid, species with 4 arms and compound eyes that gleamed like black glass. Their military is small. Their technology is primitive. They would only lose those colonies to pirates or worse. Hyun's jaw tightened slightly, but his expression did not change. Next to Jiwoo, Dr. Minho Choi adjusted his glasses and made a small mark on his own tablet. Minho looked like a simple scientist, which he was. He studied alien cultures and biology, but he also studied other things the council did not know about. Commander Yuna Lee sat at the end of the human delegation. She was security chief, responsible for protecting the human representatives. Her dark eyes moved constantly, watching everything, reading body language across dozens of species. She noticed things others missed, like how the Thornax mediator, a being made of living crystal, had gone very still. The Thornax were supposedly neutral, but Yuna had learned that stillness in their species meant intense thought. Perhaps we should vote, the Vrouxian said. All in favor of denying humanity access to the frontier territories and their associated trade routes? Hands, claws, tentacles, and other appendages rose throughout the chamber. Hyun counted them silently. 38 in favor. Only 9 against, mostly smaller species that had little power in the council. The humans had helped those smaller species before, giving them technology and aid without asking for anything in return. Those species remembered. The motion passes, the Vrouxian announced. Humanity's request is denied. Again. Hyun heard the emphasis on that last word. This was the 7th time in 3 years that humanity had asked for access to territories they needed for their growing population. 7 times denied, but he simply nodded and said, "The human delegation accepts the council's decision. We will submit a new proposal next quarter." This caused laughter in some sections of the chamber. The sound was bitter to human ears. "Always. So polite," someone muttered, though the translation system picked it up. Humans never fight. They just accept and accept. Jiwoo's hand moved slightly, touching Hyun's arm. A signal. Stay calm. Not yet. But then the Keltharan representative stood up. His name was something humans could not pronounce, so they called him Speaker 3. "I have an announcement," Speaker 3 said. "We have detained 3 human colony ships in the Deneb sector. The sector is disputed territory. The ships were asked to leave. They refused, so we took them." The chamber went quiet. Hyun felt his heart rate increase, but his face remained calm. "Detained?" he asked. "You mean captured?" "Call it what you wish," Speaker 3 said with a dismissive wave of one clawed hand. The ships are now in Keltheran custody. The colonists aboard are safe. They will remain safe if humanity withdraws. All claims to the Deneb sector and the surrounding frontier regions. How many colonists? Hyun asked quietly. 12,000. Mostly families. Many children. Speaker 3 seemed pleased with himself. We are not monsters. We are simply enforcing our rightful claims. Behind Hyun, Minho's fingers moved across his tablet rapidly, sending messages, codes, things that looked like routine diplomatic traffic but were something else entirely. The Council will vote on whether the Deneb sector belongs to the Keltheran hegemony or remains neutral space, the Vrauxian said. All in favor of recognizing Keltheran claims? The same hands, claws, and tentacles rose, 38 species voting yes, 9 voting no. The smaller species looked at the human delegation with something that might have been sympathy. They understood what it felt like to be powerless in this chamber. The vote is decided, the Vrauxian announced. The Keltheran hegemony has rightful claim to the Deneb sector. The human ships will be returned when humanity formally abandons its frontier expansion plans. Hyun stood very still. For a long moment he said nothing. The chamber waited. Some species were curious what the human would do. Others were simply bored, ready to move on to the next issue. Then Hyun spoke, and his voice was different. Not angry, not loud, just cold. 15 years, he said. For 15 years humanity has followed every rule. We have respected every decision. We have been patient and polite and cooperative. Yes, and we appreciate it. The Vrauxian said in a tone that suggested he appreciated nothing. Hyun turned slowly, looking up at all the species in their seats high above him. We came to you as friends. We asked to join the galactic community as equals. You treated us like primitives, like children who needed to learn their place. Captain Kim, Jiwoo said softly, standing up. But she was not warning him to stop. She was joining him. We accepted your trade restrictions, Hyun continued. Your technology limitations, your demands that we prove ourselves worthy. We did everything you asked, and you have given us nothing but disrespect. The Vrauxian leaned forward in his seat. Are you threatening the council, Captain? No, Hyun said. He touched the communication device on his wrist. 3 taps. Short, short, long. I am informing the council that Protocol Winters has been authorized. Silence fell across the chamber. Even the translation devices seemed uncertain how to process the sudden tension. What is Protocol Winters? The Vrauxian demanded. Jiwoo stepped forward, standing beside Hyun. Her face was calm, but there was something in her eyes that had not been there before, something that made even the predatory species in the chamber feel uneasy. Protocol Winters is what happens when humanity stops being polite. Minho stood up as well, his tablet still glowing. For 15 years, we have been diplomatic. You mistook our diplomacy for weakness. That was your first mistake. Yuna moved to join them, her hand resting casually on her communication device. Throughout the human sections of the station, invisible signals were being sent. Ships that had been in dock were beginning to power up their engines. Personnel who had been on leave were returning to their posts. And far away in the dark spaces between stars, other ships were receiving new orders. This is absurd, Speaker 3 said. Humans have barely any military. You cannot threaten the council. Hyun smiled for the first time since the vote. It was not a friendly smile. You're right. We cannot threaten the council, but we can do something else. He looked directly at the Keltheran. You have 72 hours to return our people and apologize. After that, you will learn something about humanity that we hoped you would never need to know. And what is that? The Vrauxian asked. That we spent 10,000 years on Earth perfecting the art of warfare, Jiwoo said quietly. Long before we ever reached the stars. We know things about conflict that you cannot imagine. We have been polite, we have been patient, but we have never ever been weak. The massive screens around the chamber suddenly flickered. For exactly 3.7 seconds, every human ship, station, and facility in the galaxy went dark. Their signals disappeared. Their communications went silent. Then, just as suddenly, they all came back online. That was a demonstration, Hyun said into the shocked silence. We can make everything we have disappear. We can make it reappear, and we can make other things disappear too. He looked up at the council. 72 hours. Return our people, or discover what humans are really capable of. Then the human delegation turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving 47 species sitting in stunned silence, wondering if they had just made a terrible mistake. The human delegation did not return to their quarters. Instead, they went to a secure room deep inside Station Harmony, in a section that most species never visited. The room had been built by humans 5 years ago, supposedly as a communication hub. It was much more than that. Hyun removed his formal jacket and rolled up his sleeves. The polite diplomat was gone. What remained was the man he had been before joining the diplomatic corps, a military officer who had seen real combat during Earth's final unification wars. Status report, he said. Yuna pulled up a holographic display that filled the center of the room. It showed the entire galaxy, with thousands of glowing dots representing ships, stations, and facilities. Blue dots were human. Red dots were Keltheran. Yellow dots were other council species. All human assets responded to the signal. Protocol Winters is active. Every ship captain knows their orders. Every station commander is ready. The Keltheran fleet? Hyun asked. Moving to defensive positions around their core worlds, Yuna replied. They think we might actually attack. They are taking the threat seriously, even if the council is not. Minho brought up his own screen, filled with data that scrolled past too fast for most people to read. I have confirmed backdoor access to 82% of council communication systems. The software patches we provided over the last 10 years are working as designed. We can listen to anything they say. We can also make their systems stop working whenever we choose. Jiwoo sat down heavily in a chair. For the first time in years, she looked tired. I hoped it would not come to this. I really did. We all did, Hyun said softly. But they gave us no choice. They took our people. They have been stealing from us, lying to us, and treating us like we do not matter. Enough. A communication signal blinked on the main screen. Yuna opened it. The face that appeared was new to the council, but not to the human delegation. Admiral Dae-sung looked like he had been carved from stone. His gray hair was cut military short. His uniform was not the blue of the diplomatic corps, but the black of Earth's actual military, the part that operated far from council space. Captain Kim, Dae-sung said. His voice was rough like gravel. I received the activation order. The fleet is ready. We can be at the Keltheran border in 48 hours. No, Hyun said. We wait the full 72 hours. We gave them a deadline. We will honor it. If we do not honor our own words, we are no better than they are. Dae-sung nodded. Understood. But Captain, they need to see what they are facing. Permission to move the fleet into detectable range? Hyun looked at Jiwoo. She thought for a moment, then nodded. Do it, let them see. Let the council see what humanity has really been building. The Admiral smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. With pleasure. Dae-sung out, the screen went dark. Hyun looked at his team. What we are about to do will change everything. Humanity will never be seen the same way again. Are we sure? They took 12,000 of our people, Yuna said. Including children. Yes, I am sure. They have been stealing from us for 15 years, Minho added. Every denied trade route cost us resources we needed. Every blocked colony meant families could not find new homes. Yes, I am sure, Jiwoo stood up. I have spent 12 years in that chamber, smiling while they insulted us, compromising while they took advantage, being polite while they laughed at us. Yes, Hyun, I am very sure. Hour by hour, things began to change across the galaxy. 6 hours after the human delegation left the council chamber, long-range sensors began detecting something at the edge of known space. Ships, hundreds of them, all moving in perfect formation toward council space. The energy signatures were human, but the ship designs were new, bigger, more advanced than anything humanity had shown the council before. The Varalxian military command sent urgent messages to their intelligence division. How did humans build this fleet? Where did they build it? Why did we not know about it? The answers were disturbing. Humans had been building in the outer veil, a region of space so remote and difficult to navigate that most species never went there. They had been building for 10 years, using resources from asteroid fields and dead systems that no one else wanted. Every merchant ship that traveled to the outer veil had actually been a supply vessel. Every scientific expedition had been a construction crew. 12 hours in, 3 Keltheran military outposts on the frontier went silent. No distress calls, no signs of attack. They simply stopped responding. The Keltheran hegemony sent their nearest fleet to investigate. It would take them 18 hours to arrive. In the council chamber, an emergency session was called. Species demanded to know what was happening. The Vrauxian leader tried to maintain order, but the chamber was chaos. Everyone was talking at once, their translation devices creating a wall of overlapping sound. The Thornax mediator, who had been silent during the original vote, finally spoke. Their crystalline body flickered with inner light as they communicated. I must confess something to the council. For the last 3 years, I have been studying human behavior patterns. I have analyzed every negotiation, every compromise, every moment of their time in this chamber. And, the Vrauxian demanded. They have been playing a different game than we realized, the Thornax said. Every time they compromised, they were buying time. Every time they accepted our decisions, they were learning our patterns. Every time they smiled and stayed polite, they were getting stronger. We did not defeat them in negotiations. We taught them exactly how we think. The chamber went quiet. Furthermore, the Thornax continued, I believe they have been planning this for years, perhaps since the day they joined the council. The human concept of strategy operates on longer timelines than most species consider. They think in decades, not years. 24 hours after the ultimatum, Jiwoo sent a message on all council frequencies. Every species heard it. Every world. Every ship. This is Ambassador Jiwoo Park of Earth. 48 hours remain. We are not bluffing. We are not playing games. Return our people. The message was simple, direct, and somehow more frightening than any threat could have been. 30 hours in, the Keltheran fleet reached their silent outposts. What they found made no sense. The stations were intact. All systems were functional. Power was running, but every single being on those stations was unconscious, alive, breathing normally but deeply asleep. Medical scans showed no drugs, no toxins, no explanation. In the center of each station's command center, the same message was playing on a loop. Captain Hyun Kim's face on the screen, his voice calm. This is what mercy looks like. We could have destroyed these stations. We could have killed everyone on them. We chose not to. This is your one warning. You will not receive another. The Keltheran military command went into full alert. If humans could do this without firing a single weapon, without even being detected, what else were they capable of? 48 hours. Jiwoo stood before the council chamber entrance. This time, she was not alone. Hyun was with her along with Minho and Yuna. But there was also a holographic presence projected so that all could see. Fleet Admiral Somin Han, commander of Earth's Outer Veil Fleet. She was younger than Daesung, but her eyes held the same hard certainty. We have come to answer questions, Jiwoo said as she entered the chamber. The Vrauxian leader looked down at them. How many ships do you have? Enough, Somin Han replied. What did you do to our outposts? Speaker 3 demanded, his forearms trembling with barely controlled anger. We used a technology you do not have, Minho said calmly. A neural suspension field. It is completely harmless. Those beings will wake up in approximately 72 hours with nothing worse than a good night's sleep. You expect us to believe you have such advanced technology? Another council member asked. Minho smiled. Do you remember the medical scanners we gave you 7 years ago? The ones that improved your diagnostic capabilities by 40%? Those scanners also mapped the neural patterns of every species that used them. We have been collecting data the entire time we have been here. The implications crashed through the chamber like a wave. Everything humanity had given the council had been designed to serve a dual purpose. Help and information gathering. Friendship and intelligence operations. You have been spying on us, the Vrauxian said. Yes, Jiwoo said simply. While you were busy underestimating us, we were learning everything about you. Your military capabilities, your economic weaknesses, your political alliances. Every species in this chamber, we know your secrets. She held up a small data crystal. This contains evidence of every treaty violation committed against humanity over the last 15 years. Every illegal seizure, every blocked trade route that violated council law, every species that took advantage of our politeness. She placed it on the chamber floor. We have been keeping track. All of it. Why? Someone asked. Why go through all this? Hyun stepped forward. Because we hoped you would realize what you were doing and stop. We hoped that by being good neighbors, good partners, you would eventually treat us as equals. We were wrong. The timer on the main screen showed 24 hours remaining. Yuna spoke for the first time. The Keltheran hegemony has a choice to make. Return our people and formally apologize, or discover what happens when you push humanity too far. And if we do not, Speaker 3 said, trying to sound brave. The last 24 hours moved slowly for some, quickly for others. For the Keltheran hegemony, time seemed to race forward like a bullet. For humanity, each second was measured and calm. In the secure room, Hyun watched multiple screens showing different parts of the galaxy. Human ships were in position. Every trade route, every major system, every strategic location had human vessels nearby. Not threatening, not attacking, just present, waiting. The smaller species are breaking ranks, Yuna reported. She showed messages from a dozen different council members. The species that humanity had helped over the years were sending private communications. Apologies, offers of support, requests for mercy. Respond to all of them, Jiwoo said. Tell them we appreciate their words. Tell them this is not about them. This is about the species that have been taking advantage of everyone, not just us. 60 hours. The Vrouxian Concordat sent a private message to the Keltheran leadership. The message was brief and cold. Release the humans. The Vrouxians had run their own analysis. If humanity could shut down outposts without being detected, if they had built a fleet in secret, if they had backdoors into council technology, then they were far more dangerous than anyone had believed. But the Keltheran leadership refused. They had the largest military in the council. They had conquered 17 worlds over the last 2 centuries. They would not bow to humans who had been in space for less than 300 years. Pride. It was going to cost them everything. 66 hours. More species began sending messages, not to the Keltherans but to humanity, asking what they could do to help. Offering to mediate. Some even offered to vote against the Keltheran claims if the issue came to the council again. Minho read through the messages and shook his head. Now they want to help. Where were they when we needed them? They were scared, Hyun said. The Vrouxians and Keltherans control the council. Speaking against them meant risking their own positions. I understand it. I do not forgive it, but I understand. 70 hours. The Keltheran fleet began moving into defensive formations around their homeworld. Their military command was taking the human threat seriously now, even if their political leaders were not. Battleships that had been in dock for years were being activated. Planetary defense systems were being brought online. They were preparing for war. Admiral Dae-sung watched the Keltheran movements from his command ship. They are making it easy for us, concentrating their forces like this. It is a mistake. Beside him, Admiral So-min-han nodded. They are thinking in terms of traditional warfare. They expect us to attack their military. They expect a battle. But that is not what we are going to do, Dae-sung said. No, So-min agreed. It is not 71 hours. 1 hour remained. In the council chamber, species gathered even though no session had been called. They could not stay away. They needed to see what would happen. The Thornax mediator stood at the center of the floor, their crystalline body pulsing with different colors. They were the only one who seemed calm. What do you think will happen? Someone asked them. I think, the Thornax said slowly, that we are about to witness something that has not been seen in this galaxy for a very long time. A species that has been pushed beyond patience. Humanity has shown us their polite face for 15 years. We are about to see what lies beneath it. 72 hours. The deadline arrived. Across the galaxy, beings stopped what they were doing. Ships halted their journeys. Stations went quiet. Everyone was watching, waiting to see if the humans would actually do something. In the secure room, Hyun looked at his team. Last chance. We can still pull back. We can try diplomacy again. Jiwoo shook her head. No, we cannot. If we back down now, we will never be taken seriously. Every species in the galaxy will know they can take our people hostage and we will do nothing. Yuna agreed. The Keltherans have to learn this lesson. If not them, then someone else will try the same thing next year. And the year after that, Minho's tablet beeped, a message from the Keltheran government. He read it and his expression darkened. They are offering to negotiate, but they want humanity to make concessions first. They still think they are in a position of strength. Hyun took a deep breath. Then he opened a communication channel to Admiral Dae-sung. This is Captain Hyun Kim. You are authorized to proceed. Show them what we are capable of. But remember, minimize casualties. We are not monsters. Understood, Dae-sung replied. Then he turned to his fleet. The order went out in a single word. Initiate. The human fleet moved. Not toward the Keltheran homeworld, but toward something else. The Keltheran military watched in confusion as human ships bypassed their defensive formations entirely. Where were they going? The answer became clear minutes later. The human fleet had targeted every Keltheran military outpost, supply depot, and communication relay in the entire sector. Not the populated worlds, not the civilian stations, just the military infrastructure, and then the humans deployed their weapons. Except they were not traditional weapons. From each human ship, thousands of small drones launched. They moved through space like schools of fish, coordinating with each other in patterns that seemed almost alive. The Keltheran forces opened fire. Energy weapons lit up the darkness of space. Missiles streaked toward the human ships, but the drones were too small, too numerous, too fast. They wove through the defensive fire like rain falling through fingers. When the drones reached the Keltheran military ships, they attached themselves to the hulls. The Keltherans tried everything. They used lasers to burn them off. They used electromagnetic pulses. They tried ramming their own ships together to scrape the drones away. Nothing worked. Then the drones activated. A cascade of electromagnetic interference spread through every Keltheran military vessel. Not explosions, not fire, just a complete shutdown of every system. Engines went dark. Weapons powered down. Life support switched to emergency backup. Communication systems died. In 47 minutes, the entire Keltheran military fleet was floating dead in space. Not destroyed, not damaged, just shut down. And inside those ships, every crew member was alive and unharmed, but stuck in vessels that no longer worked. The council chamber watched it happen on the main screens. Real-time footage from various sources showed the Keltheran fleet being systematically disabled. Ship after ship going dark. The display was almost beautiful in its precision. They did not fire a single shot, someone whispered. They did not kill anyone, another added. Speaker 3 stood in the chamber, watching his species' military become helpless. His forearms hung at his sides. He had no words. The human delegation entered the chamber. This time they did not wait for permission to speak. Jiwoo walked to the center of the floor, Hyun beside her. We told you what would happen, she said. Her voice was not angry, just matter of fact. We gave you 72 hours. You chose not to listen. You have crippled our entire defense fleet, Speaker 3 said, his voice breaking. No, Hyun corrected. We have temporarily disabled your military vessels. In approximately 1 week, those drones will detach and the systems will reboot. Your people are safe. Your ships will be fine. We kept our word. We do not want to kill anyone. But you needed to understand that humanity is not weak. Minho stepped forward. The technology we used is called a cascade drone system. Each drone links with others to create a network that can shut down any electronic system. We developed it specifically for situations like this. Non-lethal but completely effective. Why? The Vrouxian leader asked. Why go through all this trouble to avoid killing? Hyun looked up at him. Because we are not like you. We remember what it cost to unify our own world. We remember the wars, the death, the suffering. We decided when we reached the stars that we would not become the monsters we once were. But that does not mean we forgot how to fight. It just means we choose when and how we do it. Jiwoo placed another data crystal on the floor. This contains our terms. Reparations for 15 years of systematic discrimination. Access to the trade routes we need. Formal apologies from every species that voted against us. And reforms to the council voting system so that no species can be bullied the way we were. And if we refuse? Someone asked. Eunice smiled. It was not a nice smile. Then we do to each of you what we just did to the Keltherans. One by one. We have the capability. We have the information. And now you know we have the will to use them. The chamber was silent. Then slowly the smaller species began to stand. One by one they announced their agreement to the human terms. They had watched humanity be patient for 15 years. They had watched humanity try to work within the system, and they had watched what happened when patience ran out. The larger species, the ones who had controlled the council for centuries, sat in their seats. They were not used to being the ones without power. It felt wrong. It felt terrifying. "You have changed everything," the Thornax mediator said. "The balance of power in this galaxy has shifted." "Good," Jiwoo said. "The old balance was broken. Maybe the new one will be better." Speaker 3 finally found his voice. "What about our people? The ones you took hostage?" "We took no one hostage," Hyun said coldly. "You did that. Our people are in your custody. Release them now and we will restore your fleet." "Refuse." The distress signals came from 7 different worlds in the span of 6 hours. Each one the same. A brief message of something attacking, then silence. When scout ships arrived at those worlds, they found destruction, not the kind that came from military conquest. Something worse. The worlds were stripped, buildings torn apart, resources extracted, and no survivors. The council met an emergency session. For once, no one was arguing about territory or trade routes. Fear had a way of making old enemies forget their differences. The main screen showed the attack pattern, red dots marking dead worlds, moving steadily inward toward the populated core systems. "What are we facing?" the Vrauxian leader asked. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by genuine concern. A small species called the Rendari spoke up. They were insectoid, smaller than the Keltherans, with 6 legs and antennae that constantly moved. "Our astronomers detected something 3 months ago. A void in space where there should be stars. We thought it was a sensor error." "It was not an error," the Thornax mediator said. "Their crystalline body was pulsing red, a color no one had seen from them before. What you detected was them. The Void Swarm. Our ancient records speak of them. They appeared in this galaxy once before, thousands of years ago. They consume. They adapt. They destroy. Why did you not warn us?" Speaker 3 demanded. "Because the records said they were gone," the Thornax replied. "We thought they were legend." "We were wrong." Hyun stood with the human delegation. Despite everything that had happened with the Keltherans, no one asked them to leave. Instead, species were looking at them with something new. Hope. The Vrauxian leader turned to Hyun. "Captain Kim, your people have proven themselves capable of things we did not imagine. Can you fight this?" Hyun looked at Jiwoo. She gave a small nod. "We will try," Hyun said. "But we need information first. Everything you know about these attackers." The next 6 hours were spent analyzing every piece of data from the destroyed worlds. Minho worked with scientists from a dozen species, poring over sensor logs and surveillance footage. What they learned was disturbing. The Void Swarm was not ships. It was organisms, living creatures that could survive in space, moving in massive clusters that blocked out starlight. They would descend on a world and strip it of all useful materials in a matter of hours. Metal, minerals, even organic matter. Everything was consumed and integrated into their biomass. "They are like locusts," Minho said, "but intelligent. They do not just consume randomly. They target specific things. They are learning." Yuna pulled up tactical data. "Their movement pattern is not random either. They are avoiding the strongest military positions and hitting weaker targets first. They are testing our defenses." Admiral Dae-sung appeared via hologram. "Captain Kim, we need to engage them before they reach the core worlds. If they continue at this pace, they will hit populated systems within 2 weeks." "Agreed," Hyun said, "but we need to understand what we are fighting. Admiral, take the fleet to intercept them at the Shattered Gate. That is a bottleneck. We can study them there and make our stand." The Shattered Gate was an asteroid field that marked the boundary between the outer rim and the inner territories. Any fleet moving inward would have to pass through it. It was the perfect place for an ambush. The human fleet moved out. But this time they were not alone. The Vrauxian Concordat sent 3 battle groups. The smaller species contributed what ships they could. Even the Keltherans, still recovering from their humiliation, sent vessels. Everyone understood what was at stake. Speaker 3's hologram appeared before Hyun. "Captain Kim, I know we are enemies, but this threat is bigger than our conflict. My people want to help." Hyun studied the Keltheran for a moment. "We are not enemies, Speaker 3. We never wanted to be. We just wanted respect." He paused. "Your help is welcome. Tell your ships to follow Admiral Han's tactical commands. She will coordinate the defense. The combined fleet reached the shattered gate 4 days after the emergency session. Admiral Somin Han took command from her flagship. She looked at the forces under her control and felt a strange mixture of pride and worry. A month ago, these species had been mocking humanity. Now they were following human orders. All ships established defensive positions. Somin commanded. Use the asteroids as cover. Do not engage until we know what we are dealing with. They did not have to wait long. The void swarm appeared at the edge of sensor range 6 hours later. It looked like a dark cloud moving through space, thousands of creatures flying in perfect coordination. When they hit the first asteroids in the field, the rocks simply dissolved, consumed by the swarm in seconds. All ships, weapons ready, Somin ordered. But she hesitated. Something felt wrong. The swarm was moving too directly, too confidently. Sensors, full scan. What are we looking at? The sensor officer's voice was shaken. Admiral, there are millions of individual organisms. Each one is about 2 meters long. They have organic armor, biological weapons that fire acidic projectiles, and they are coordinating through some kind of hive consciousness. Minho was watching from his station on the human command ship. Admiral, they are adapting already. Look at their formation. They are spreading out, making it harder to hit them with area weapons. Somin made a decision. All ships fire at will. Target the densest clusters. Energy beams lance through space. Missiles streaked toward the swarm. Kinetic rounds tore through the void. For a moment it looked like it was working. Thousands of the creatures died, burning up or exploding as the weapons found their marks. But then the swarm adapted. The creatures began moving in spiraling patterns, making themselves harder to hit. When weapons did connect, other creatures would shield their neighbors with their armored bodies. They were learning from each attack. They adapt like humans do, Somin said quietly. That was a terrifying thought. The battle raged for 3 hours. The combined fleet killed hundreds of thousands of the creatures, but millions more kept coming. And worse, the swarm was learning. They began targeting specific ship systems, engines, weapons, communication arrays. They were studying the fleet's technology. All ships pull back to secondary positions, Somin ordered. We need to change tactics. As the fleet retreated deeper into the shattered gate, Hyun was working on an idea. He called Admiral Dae-sung. We cannot fight them the way we fight other species. They adapt too quickly. We need to use tactics they have never seen. What do you have in mind? Dae-sung asked. On Earth, humans spent thousands of years fighting each other. We developed strategies for every kind of warfare. These creatures are strong, but they are predictable. They attack directly. They overwhelm through numbers. But humans learned a long time ago how to defeat enemies like that. Guerrilla tactics, Dae-sung said, understanding immediately. Exactly. We do not meet them head-on. We hit them from unexpected angles. We make them come to us. We use the environment against them. Somin heard the conversation and smiled. I like it. Captain Kim, you have tactical command. Show these things what human warfare really looks like. The battle changed completely. Instead of fighting the swarm in open space, human ships lured them deeper into the asteroid field. Explosives were hidden in the rocks. When the swarm passed, the asteroids would detonate, creating chain reactions that killed thousands of creatures at once. The Varoxian ships provided cover fire while human vessels would appear, strike, and vanish behind asteroids. The Keltheran fleet used their superior shields to draw the swarm's attention, then retreat while other ships attacked from the sides. It was working. The swarm's adaptation ability meant nothing when the tactics kept changing faster than they could learn. Humans had spent millennia perfecting the art of unpredictability in combat. Every time the swarm adjusted to one approach, the fleet would switch to something different. After 12 hours of fighting, the swarm began to retreat. The creatures pulled back, regrouping at the edge of the asteroid field. They had learned something important. This enemy was different from the others they had faced. The combined fleet held their position, ready for another attack. But it did not come. The swarm simply stayed at the edge of sensor range, watching. They are analyzing us, Minho said. They will come back with new tactics. Let them, Hyun said. We proved something today. The void swarm can be beaten. They are not invincible. Back in the council chamber, the species watched recordings of the battle. They saw how human tactics had turned a losing fight into a victory. They saw how the other species following human commands had worked together more effectively than ever before. The Thornax mediator spoke to the assembled council. Humans have given us something we have not had in a long time. unity, and hope. Perhaps it took a threat like the Void Swarm to show us what we should have seen from the beginning. The Vrouxian leader stood. It was difficult for him, but he did it anyway. I propose that Captain Hyun Kim be appointed Supreme Commander of Council Defense Forces. He and his people have proven they understand warfare better than any species here. We need that knowledge if we are to survive. There was silence. Then one by one species began to vote in favor. Even Speaker 3 raised 2 of his 4 arms in agreement. Jiwoo looked at Hyun. You realize what this means? We just went from being the weakest species in the council to leading it. I know, Hyun said. But 3 months had passed since the Battle of the Shattered Gate. The galaxy was different now. The old council structure had been reformed. Species that had once competed now cooperated, and at the center of it all was humanity, no longer asking for respect but commanding it through their actions. Hyun stood in the new command center on Station Harmony. The room was larger than before, with tactical displays showing fleet positions across the entire galaxy. Representatives from every species worked at stations, coordinating defense efforts. The Void Swarm had not attacked again after their defeat, but everyone knew they would return. Supreme Commander, a Vrouxian officer said, using Hyun's new title. Long-range sensors are detecting movement in Sector 47. It matches the energy signature of the swarm. Hyun moved to the display. The swarm was there, but they were not attacking. They were circling, probing defenses, testing response times. They are studying us like we studied them. Miu analysis. Dr. Minho Choi had been promoted to Chief Science Advisor for the Council. He spent most of his time analyzing the swarm's behavior patterns. They are demonstrating advanced learning capability. Each time we encounter them, they have adapted to our previous tactics. This is not just instinct. This is intelligence. Can we communicate with them? Jiwoo asked. She had been elected to the council high seat, representing a reformed governing body that actually listened to all its members now. We have tried, Minho said. Every frequency, every method we know. Either they do not understand or they choose not to respond. I think it is the latter. Commander Yuna Lee entered the room. She now headed the Galactic Intelligence Network, a new organization that combined the intelligence capabilities of all council species. Supreme Commander, we have confirmed the location of the swarm's central mass. It is in the dark zone beyond the outer rim. The large organism Admiral Han detected appears to be at its center. Hyun studied the map. The dark zone was a region of space with few stars and no habitable worlds. Perfect for an enemy that wanted to hide and build strength. How many of them are there? Our best estimate? Billions, maybe more. What we have been fighting is just their scouts. The main swarm has not moved yet. The room went quiet. Everyone understood what that meant. If billions of those creatures attacked at once, the defensive victories they had won would mean nothing. Admiral Dae Sung appeared via hologram. His fleet had been conducting raids on the swarm's outer elements, keeping them off balance. Supreme Commander, we cannot win a defensive war against these numbers. We need to attack their core, cut off the head. That was my thought as well, Hyun said. But it will require everything we have. And we will lose ships. We will lose people. We will lose more if we wait, Fleet Admiral So Min-han said. She had become Hyun's second in command, respected by all species for her tactical brilliance. The swarm grows larger every day. They are consuming dead worlds and unoccupied systems. Every week we delay, they get stronger. Speaker 3 entered the command center. The Keltharan had changed since the confrontation with humanity. He had become one of Hyun's most reliable advisors, perhaps because he understood what it meant to underestimate humans. Supreme Commander, the Keltharan hegemony offers its full fleet for this operation. We owe humanity a debt. Let us help repay it, Hyun nodded. Thank you, Speaker. We will need everyone for this. He turned to the room. Send the order. All available ships are to rally at staging point Gamma. We are going to the dark zone. We are going to end this. The largest fleet in galactic history assembled over the next 2 weeks. Human vessels formed the core. With their advanced technology and unpredictable tactics, Vrouxian battle groups provided heavy firepower. Keltharan ships brought their superior shields. Smaller species contributed specialized vessels, each adding their unique capabilities to the force. Jiwoo watched the fleet gather from the station. 15 years ago, we came to the council hoping for friendship. Now we are leading them into the most dangerous battle any of us have ever faced. Life is strange that way, Hyun said beside her. We wanted peace. We got war. But maybe after this war, we will finally have real peace. The fleet entered the dark zone 3 days later. Space here was different. Darker. Colder. The few stars that existed gave off weak, dying light. It felt like flying through a graveyard. All ships, battle formation, Soman commanded. Stay alert. The swarm knows we are here. They did not have to search long. The swarm found them. It came from all directions at once. Millions of creatures emerging from the darkness like a living nightmare. But this time the fleet was ready. Human tactical doctrine had been shared with every species. Every captain knew the plan. Every crew understood their role. When the swarm attacked, they met not a panicked defense but a coordinated response. Ships moved in patterns that confused the swarm's hive mind. Weapons fired at angles the creatures did not expect. When one tactic stopped working, commanders would switch to another. The months of training together paid off. The fleet fought like a single organism, adapting as fast as the swarm itself. But the swarm had adapted too. They had learned from the previous defeats. Some creatures had developed thicker armor. Others had biological weapons that could penetrate shields. The battle was brutal with losses on both sides. "We need to reach the central organism," Hyun said from his command ship. "That is the key. Minho, can you locate it?" "Working on it," Minho replied. His sensors were scanning through the chaos trying to find the pattern. "There, I have it. Coordinates transmitting now." A massive shape appeared on the tactical display. The central organism was enormous, bigger than most space stations. Around it, the swarm circled in protective layers. "All ships form assault wedge," Hyun ordered. "We are going through." The fleet pushed forward, fighting through wave after wave of creatures. Ships were damaged. Some were destroyed. But they kept moving, driven by human determination and the courage of species that had learned to trust each other. Admiral Dae Sung's flagship led the charge. "Almost there," he called out. "All weapons target that thing. Fire everything." Energy beams, missiles, kinetic rounds, every weapon the galaxy had invented poured into the central organism. Its armor was thick, designed to withstand incredible damage. But even it had limits. Then Soman had an idea. "Launch the Cascade drones. Not at the creature, at the smaller ones around it. If we disrupt their coordination, the big one will be vulnerable." Thousands of drones deployed, attaching to the guardian creatures. One by one, the swarm members began shutting down, just like the Keltheran ships had months ago. The protective wall around the central organism collapsed. "Now," Hyun shouted. "All ships concentrate fire." The combined firepower of the entire fleet focused on a single target. The central organism tried to defend itself, but it was too late. Explosions rippled across its surface. Its biological armor cracked and shattered. And then with a final massive detonation, it died. The effect was immediate. Throughout the dark zone, the swarm creatures stopped moving. Without the central organism coordinating them, they became confused, lost. Many simply went dormant. Others fled into deep space, no longer a unified threat. The fleet held its position, weapons ready, but no further attacks came. The swarm was broken. Cheers erupted across every ship. Species that had never celebrated together before were now shouting in triumph. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. Hyun allowed himself a moment of relief. Then he opened a channel to all ships. "All vessels begin recovery operations. We have wounded to tend to and lost comrades to honor. This victory belongs to all of us. Every species, every ship, every person who fought today." The return to council space took a week. When the fleet arrived, they found something waiting for them. Every station, every world, every outpost had messages of gratitude and celebration. The threat that could have destroyed the entire galaxy had been defeated. A memorial was built on Station Harmony. It showed representatives from all species standing together, with a human at the center. The plaque was written in every council language. "In memory of the day we learned that strength comes not from dominance but from unity. May we never forget what we accomplished together." 1 year later, Hyun stood before that memorial with the former Varaxian leader. The reptilian was no longer in charge of the council, having been replaced by a more progressive leader. But he still served as a military advisor. "Captain Kim," the Varaxian said. "Most people called Hyun Supreme Commander now, but the old leader still used his original rank. I want to ask you something. That day in the council chamber, when you activated Protocol Winters, would you really have done it? Would you have taken down our entire civilization?" Hyun was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the memorial, at the image of species united. We prepared for 15 years to do exactly that. We had plans for every contingency. We knew your weaknesses, your vulnerabilities. We could have crippled every major species in the Council. But would you have? The Varaxian pressed. We would have done whatever was necessary to protect our people, Hyun said. But we also would have done everything possible to avoid killing unnecessarily. That is the human way. We plan for the worst while hoping for the best. The Varaxian nodded slowly. Your species is paradoxical. You are the E,